enough of me balancing. Let's go ahead and talk about balancing chemical equations, or why the law of conservation of mass is your friend. So first of all, let's go ahead and start with some key terms. So to begin with, we're going to go ahead and go over some key terms that are going to make understanding balancing equations much easier. So we're going to be talking about coefficients and subscript numbers, what a reaction arrow is, and then we're going to go ahead and talk about reactants and products. All right, so what a coefficient is, let's go ahead and start there. So we're going to go ahead and start, let's go ahead and do this. So 2H2O. This right here is the coefficient, just like in math. So what that tells you is that you have two molecules of water, okay? So you've got two molecules of water. 1, 2. 2H2O. Now let's go ahead and talk about, let's go ahead and get rid of this, and we'll talk about subscripts. Okay, so what a subscript is, let's just go ahead and go this way, H2O. What that tells you is how many atoms of the element that you have, okay? So right here, you've got hydrogen, you've got 2 hydrogens, okay? Now, if you see right here, if you look at this right here, the oxygen, there's no number. So when there's no number, you just know that there is one atom of that element, okay? So that means there's one oxygen, okay? So you've got 2 hydrogens and 1 oxygen. Now let's go ahead and move on to what the reaction arrow is. Now, we're going to go ahead and be using hydrogen peroxide a lot in this lecture, so let's go ahead and start with that now. So hydrogen peroxide is H2O2, and it yields water and oxygen gas. Okay, so this right here is the reaction arrow. Now, on the left side of the reaction arrow, these right here are the reactants. To the right side of the reaction arrow are the products. So to the left of the reaction arrow, in the reactants, there are going to be 2 hydrogens, and there's going to be 2 oxygens. 2 hydrogens, 2 oxygens. Now let's jump over here to the right of the reaction arrow, to the products, and you're going to have 2 hydrogens, 1 oxygen, because remember, even though there's no number, you know that right there is a 1, okay? So 1 oxygen there, and then you've got 2 oxygens there, so that's going to be a total of 3 oxygens. Okay, hopefully those were helpful. Let's go ahead and talk about a couple other key terms that will come in handy. So the first is the law of conservation of matter. So in a chemical reaction, the mass of the products, and remember we already talked about those, equals the. So in other words, no matter is ever created or destroyed. That is balancing a chemical equation. So what's on the left side of the reaction arrow is the same as what's on the right side of the reaction arrow. So key terms continue. All right, so this is the difference between physical and chemical changes. So what a physical change is, there's no change in the molecules. It's usually about a state of matter. So like water, when it goes from a solid to a liquid, the molecules stay the same. It's still water. It's just in a different state. A chemical change is where there is a change in that creates different material. So for instance, if you have iron and you add oxygen to it, and it oxidizes, which is a fancy word for rust, then it becomes iron oxide, which is CO3. So the iron and the oxygen, actually, the chemical change becomes something. So let's say also you have like a sugar. If you melt the sugar cube, it's going to be a physical change because it's still sugar, it's just melted. If you burn the sugar, then then it's going to be a chemical change because it's going to become something totally different. Wow, super cool. So what does all this have to do with balancing chemical equations? Let's find out. All right, so we're going to go ahead and balance this chemical equation, H2O2, and that yields water and oxygen gas. So the first thing you do is you take inventory of what you have, which is how many atoms of each element do you have total. Now remember, when you do this, never change the subscript of the element or the molecule, because if you do, you literally change what the element or molecule is. So for example, CO2 can be, or CO can become CO2, which is a very different kind of gas. Very different impacts. So go ahead and check this out. We're going to go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and run you through balancing this equation, and we'll go ahead and come back to the slides in just a minute.
Okay, so let's go ahead and take hydrogen peroxide and balance it. So first thing we do is take inventory. So on the left side of the reaction arrow, we've got the reactants. And then on the right side, we've got the products. So on the let's go ahead and take an inventory of our reactants. So we've got hydrogen and we've got oxygen. So it looks like we've got 2 atoms of hydrogen and 2 of oxygen. All right, so let's go ahead and over to the other side of the arrow and see what we've got with products. So we've got 2 hydrogen, and let's go ahead and count up our oxygen here. So with oxygen, you can see the H2O. If there is not a number under it, or below its subscript, you know that it is a 1. So we've got 1 oxygen there, and then we've got 2 with the oxygen gas. So that's going to give us a total of 3 atoms of oxygen. All right, so let's go ahead and see what the next step. Let's go ahead and I'm seeing a lot of even numbers. Let's go ahead and try and get that oxygen to be an even number. So the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to go ahead and put a 2 in front of that, and let's go ahead and start these over, see what we get now. So now I've got 2 hydrogens times 2. So we've got 2 times 2 is 4. And then I've got 2 times 1 is going to be, I'm dealing with the water molecule here. So 2 times 1 is 2. And then I've got the O2, which is another 2. And that gets me 4. Okay, so now let's go over here and see what we've got. So now on the reactant side, I've got 2 hydrogens and I've got 2 oxygens, and I need to get both of those up to 4. So let's go ahead and do this. So that means that we've got, go ahead and erase these and start over. All right, so that means that I've got 2 times 2 of hydrogen is 4, and 2 times 2 of oxygen is also going to be 4. So let's go ahead and double check our work here, make sure it is balanced. So I've got 4 hydrogen on this side, and I've got 4 hydrogen on that side. And then on the reactant side, I've got 4 oxygen, and on the product side, I've got 4 oxygen. So that means that it is balanced.
Okay, it is your turn. Yeah, that was, this is a little bit of an encouragement. So go ahead and balance these 2 chemical equations, and we're going to go over them when. All right, good luck. And again, encouragement. All right, so go ahead and balance NaCl, and that yields Na and Cl. So hydrogen and Cl is chlorine. So Na and O2. Go ahead and balance that, and we will see you in class.